Started. So we'll start with a bit of breathing. Make sure you've got space behind you. You can always have your legs up the wall too if that'd be your preference. Hands come behind thighs, coming down gradually, one disc at a time. Once you're all the way there, walk the feet towards you. Eventually take the feet together and the knees wide. And we're looking at the whole sole of the foot connected. So the big toe mound, the baby toe mound, the inner heel, the outer heel. Feet as close to you or as far from you as suits you, lengthening pubic bone away from navel rather than imprinting lower back. And you'll notice that'll increase the hip stretch. Feels like too much? You can support your hips with a couple of blocks or pillows, whatever you've got around, or you can take a break anytime. We'll start with the arms beside us. Let the arms be heavy, palms facing up. Arms can be closer to you, closer to shoulders height if you want more. You can always rest your arms on your body for even less sensation in the shoulders if you like. Taking your mind to the abdomen with each inhale, feel the abdomen expanding out in all directions. Feeling that abdomen contract, lungs emptying with each exhalation. Never forcing or straining your breathing. Ten more rounds of breath. Create as much movement as you can into the lung tissue without force, without strain. With your next exhalation, returning to the natural breath, making any adjustments you need to make. You can always add some support for the hips. You can bring your knees together, walk the feet apart anytime. You can straighten out your legs. If you're going for feet apart, I tend to squeeze my thighs together and work with the outer edge of the foot parallel or even slightly pigeon-toed. Great options. Choose to rest the arms beside you or reach the fingers towards the ceiling, lengthening the arms. Take right hand to left elbow, left hand to right. Pull the elbows apart as you squeeze with fingers and palms. Elbows lift to ceiling, upper arm bones sink to floor. Moving at a pace that feels good. I would argue slower is generally going to provide more benefit. In Hatha Yoga, we tend to do a lot of slower movements, longer holds. And then extension, no tension. Take those elbows into circles, gradually growing the size of the circle. Three more big ones. Shrinking the circles. Once they're quite small, go ahead and change direction. Gradually increasing the range. Now three more big circles. And circles shrinking. And then elbows toward legs, toward overhead. You decide what sort of range suits you. Continue to pull the elbows apart. Think external rotation of upper arms. Three more. increase or decrease the range you work with at any time. Listen to the upper back, the neck, traps. Then bringing your forearms to your forehead or over the crown of the head to hover or rest on a block, a book, some sort of height that you have, whatever you have would work great. And remember, we don't force. We only go as far overhead as feels good. Forehead might be plenty. Hovering over crown might be nice. Resting on floor might be nice. Maybe you put something right behind those forearms so you've got something that you can rest them on overhead. Really works either way. Attention to the lungs once again. Imagine the rib cage could expand and contract. More rounds of breath. Feel the entire rib cage filling, the entire rib cage emptying. With your next exhalation, return to the natural breath. Slowly bring the elbows in front of you if they were overhead and lengthen the arms. Go ahead and rest the arms heavy beside you for a moment. Decide if you want to stay longer with the knees wide or if you need a rest. If you need a rest, you bring your knees together. Maybe you straighten your legs. Maybe you keep the knees together and you walk the feet apart. Finding a pigeon toeing the feet. We're not looking for, extreme pigeon toe, but more outer edges of the feet, pretty much parallel. It'll feel like a lot of pigeon toeing though. You're squeezing knees and thighs, you're pulling ankles apart, if that's your option. You can change your mind whenever you like. Reach fingers towards ceiling once again. This time left hand to right elbow, right hand to left. Squeezing opposite elbows as you pull them apart. Elbows lift to ceiling, upper arm bones sink to floor. 3 more. And then extension, no tension. Take those elbows into circles. Gradually grow the circles. 3 more large ones. Try to use every single digit, especially little fingers, ring fingers. Even pressure if possible. And changing direction. Slowly going as big as you like. And circle is shrinking. Eventually elbows toward legs, toward overhead once again. And toward overhead to hold, maybe forearms on forehead, maybe hovering over crown of head, maybe resting on floor or resting on whatever you choose to place overhead. Arms beside you is fabulous as well. Attention goes to the upper chest and shoulders. With each inhale, feel the chest lifting, the shoulders expanding. Exhale to feel the chest sinking, shoulders contracting. Continuously focus on the movement of the upper chest, upper back, as you breathe. 5 more breaths. Chest lifting, sinking. Upper back expanding, contracting. Natural breathing. Once again, if your knees are wide, support the knees, bring the knees together, and walk the feet apart, pigeon toeing outer edges of feet just a smidge. Knees and thighs squeeze as the ankles pull apart. We're still lengthening pubic bone away from us rather than letting the lower back imprint if possible. Let the arms be heavy beside you. If they were overhead, bring them in front of you, lengthen, and then rest. You can go with straight arms closer to body to feel less. You can go arms higher to shoulder to feel more. You could go for a 90-degree angle bend, a cactus arm. Like so. I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with that one by now. Attention goes to the lungs once more. Big inhale to fill, full exhalation to empty every last drop of air. And then inhaling to fill the abdomen. When the abdomen is full, breath spills to the rib cage. When the rib cage is full, breath spills to upper chest and shoulders. And we empty the lungs from top to bottom once they are full. Please continue at your own pace. Five more waves of breath. Natural breathing, once again, no rush whatsoever. Lower the arms if they were closer toward the shoulders. Walk the knees and ankles together, bend the knees if they are straight, and then hug the legs. Taking one hand to each shin, maybe you hold behind your thigh, maybe you hold over your shin, maybe you interlace your fingers or use a strap. You can spread your toes here and squeeze the legs as you rock side to side. Lengthen pubic bone away from navel. And I imagine that I've got the soles of the feet flat on a wall. So I'm trying to get the big toe mounds and baby toe mounds equal distance from me while I'm here. Turn that into circles. Lengthening pubic bone from navel if available to you. Change direction with the circles. If the hands are interlaced, opposite thumb and forefinger dominant. Side to side we go. Coming back to center, bringing one foot to the floor and then the other. We'll roll to our right side and we'll do some fun stuff. All right, so this first one we did last class as well. We'll bring our thighs to a 90-degree angle, so we've got a 90-degree angle hip and our heels are close to the buttocks. We're drawing the abdomen and the rib cage towards the spine. The right arm can be bent, your hand can support your head. Your right arm can be straight out in front of you with a pillow or a block or something like that underneath your head. Palm can be up or down. I like palm. I think palm up is probably a little more comfortable. Palm down, you can push into your arm a little bit more firmly. You can also work with a straight arm, right arm overhead, palm down or up. Again, I like palm down. You might find different. If you go for the straight arm, you want to think of lifting the right ribs towards the left as well as drawing them toward the spine. Spread your toes. Feet can lift slightly or they can touch the floor. You lift the left knee, you lower the left knee, and you're not letting your hips go as far back as they can. So we're not going as far as we possibly can here because you're not going to get much out of this. This will be really easy. I suppose if you did maybe 100 of them, it would be difficult, but it would not add up very quick. So what you would want is to keep the pelvis quite still. So you can see the movement becomes a lot smaller. And we're trying to control the movement and control this left hip bone from traveling any farther back than the right. So we're doing our very, very best to keep the hip bone stacked, keep the pelvis or one side of the pelvis stacked on top of the other, rather than allowing one side to go back and forth. Same with the shoulders. You're trying to resist this left shoulder from going further back than the right or from being further forward than the right. You're looking to stack the joints as much as possible. Your left hand could be on your left hip or it could be in front of you. For a little more balance, a little more support, great way to strengthen your fingers too. You can have the fingertips on the ground there, drag the fingers toward the palm, reach at the elbow a little bit, not crowding the neck. Try to keep the inner edges of the feet touching heel and toe mound. Remember, you can take a break anytime. If you're doing it right, it's difficult. If it's really easy, then you're moving your pelvis a lot. Or more than you need to anyway. But sometimes we just want, a gentle release and we don't want, a lot of hard work. It really depends on the day. But I would argue that this kind of work will benefit you so much that it's really worth the effort. And yoga is not meant to be easy. It's meant to train our minds to become very, very strong, our bodies to become very strong. So we can handle any kind of circumstance that comes at us with a calm mind. We're definitely getting tested with that lately. So all the more reason to practice. All right, that's plenty. Lift up and hold up if you like. You can pulse. Pulsing's it's a good challenge. Holding up plenty. Spread the toes broadly. Think big toes are touching. Maybe they touch, maybe they don't. You're thinking about taking the buttocks forward, especially the very center of the buttocks. Not going back, but going forward a little bit, as though you could press the pelvis forward just a smidge and not allow that left hip to go any farther back. I think of lengthening my left inner groin to my left inner knee as though I had something just out of reach that I was trying to press my knee into. You can even try that with a block if you wanted to, or with your fingertips, pressing your knee into your fingertips if you can reach. And then drawing that outer knee toward the outer hip. It's good work for your toes too if you're really finding them. Alrighty, and then let those legs rest for a moment. Take the feet a little farther away from you so that now you have a 90-degree angle at the hip and a 90-degree angle at the knee. Alright, so your feet are a little farther away from you. And then we'll do a couple of movements with our legs at this angle. We'll lift our left leg up. Knee and foot no higher or lower than hip. Outer right heel lifts slightly. Toes are spread. Lifting abdomen and ribs and keeping the shoulders and hips stacked as best you can. Left thigh draws toward navel. Trying not to let the knee or foot be higher or lower than the hip. And then left thigh draws back, heel toward buttocks. And you're trying not to let the ribs move or the abdomen move, but keep them contained, going back and forth at your own pace. Trying to keep the joints as level as you can by concentrating. And this is a great one to do with a mirror if you happen to have one. Or if you are using, in this case, if you have a device and you have it close enough such that you can see yourself on your own little screen, that's a good way to keep track of your alignment when you don't have anyone observing you. Another indicator is, how does it feel? Does it feel good? Does it not feel good? If you're getting any discomfort or pain and you reduce the range and it still happens, there's a good chance that using more muscles would help a lot. And 9 times out of 10, more precise alignment leads to more muscular engagement around whichever joint might be an issue for you. And again, your left hand can be in front of you for balance and to strengthen the fingers, or it can be on that left hip. And you're trying your best not to let that left hip go any further back than the right. And you're not letting the left hip come closer to the armpit. You're taking the left hip away from left armpit continuously, especially when you're drawing the thigh toward you. And then take the thigh back and hold back. You can stay still. You could pulse a little as though you were kicking your foot into an imaginary wall. Oh, and some of us might want to clasp the ankle for a quad stretch, but again, you wouldn't want your knee or foot to be higher or lower than the hip. You wouldn't want to move into the abdomen or the ribs in order to do so. All right, and then stack those legs for a moment. Wiggle your toes if you like. All right, and then lift the left leg. Now we're gonna aim for 5 to 10 circles in each direction here. You're trying to keep your pelvis very still. If you have a block, you can put it behind your pelvis at the highest height if you like, and try not to knock it over. You could do it with your pelvis against a wall if you wanted to. Start with forward circles. Try to make the circles very, very controlled. You're trying to move only your femur, only your thigh bone. You're not making the circles as big as you possibly can, but rather you're keeping the pelvis rock solid and you're trying to isolate this movement to that femur, to that thigh. And this will help all of the musculature that surrounds that femur head to become very, very strong and also flexible, which is a great combination. And we have an equal degree of tension and flexibility in a muscle area, particularly around each joint, then that joint is going to have less pressure put on it when we utilize those muscles. Change direction if you haven't yet. I recommend counting, like I said, 5 to 10 circles in each direction. I always prefer personally to start with internal rotation of the leg and then end with external rotation. You might feel you prefer something different. That's perfectly fine. You can even experiment, some days doing internal first, some days doing external first. Or if you have one direction that's a lot tighter than the other or a lot more difficult than the other, it can often be really nice to work with it as the second direction of rotation. When those circles are even, take a brief rest. And then when you're ready, let's do 3 to 5 circles in each direction, starting with forward circles, as big as you can. So this time, let your pelvis move as much as you like. Stretch the hip as much as you like. Continue to draw the abdomen in. Continue to draw the ribs in. Hand wherever you like. And then going the other way if you haven't yet. Go super massive with your circles. If you feel any pain, go back to the neutral pelvis circle. When those circle directions are even, stack your legs. And then you're gonna straighten out your legs. So what we're looking for here is not a banana shape. We want to be a human ruler, not a human banana. So we take our legs a little bit farther away from us, so that if we were to look down, we could just see our feet, or we could just see our toes. We wouldn't see the whole leg, right? And again, you can have the right arm in whatever orientation feels best for you. You can change it whenever you like, right? Now from here, left hand in front of you. You want the fingertips on the floor. You're reaching with the elbow, bit of an outrigger. Left foot, or both feet are flexed here. You're lifting with the outer left heel. Now it doesn't matter how high you lift. Try not to lengthen on the big toe edge or the baby toe edge. Think level ankle. And there's a strong tendency here to kind of externally rotate. So you can see my leg will go a lot farther. In my case, that's particularly ridiculous. That's not what we're aiming for, because then our pelvis is moving. What we want is to have the outer edge of this foot level with the ground the whole time. So you're leading without outer heel. You can even internally rotate a little bit to make it even trickier if you like. Not allowing the pelvis to go back and forth, but keeping the body as stacked as possible. And if you're shorter with wider hips like me, this is going to be particularly difficult to balance and you will feel a little bit of a wobble. So just don't go as far as you can. Focus on a smaller movement. Lead with the outer heel. I like to lift the outer right heel slightly too, but not a lot. And then see if you can hold up. You can pulse here if you like. You can point and flex, that's what I recommend. And circles. And you're kind of squeezing the buttocks and the outer trochanter, the outer hip area toward one another. Go the other way. And the legs can be, say, an inch apart or farther, up to you. Flexing, curling, pointing, flipping. Flexing, curling, pointing, flipping. One more. Great. And then release the left leg. We'll do one more of this series. Left knee bends. Either foot comes in front of right thigh. So this might be comfortable for your hip and your knee, your back. It might not. Second option is much more comfortable and easeful. So if this is your option, you can hold the ankle. You can have your hand on the floor, and then we'll lift and lower the right leg. Second option, left foot behind right thigh. Again, left hand can be in front of you. And then we lift and lower the right leg, either way. And both work perfectly fine. Same concept, right? And you're trying to keep the hips stacked as much as you can. They're certainly not going to be perfectly stacked in this one, but it's not important if they are. Going up, going down. And you can take the right thigh slightly farther back if you want to feel more, if your foot is in front of you. If your left foot is behind you, think of squeezing the right leg towards the left. And this will increase what you feel, if you want to feel more. If you feel plenty, don't add more. I also sometimes lift the toes of the left foot, regardless of whether my foot is in front or behind my thigh. Strong elbow if you're using your elbow, or on your fingertips there. Hand could be on your hip if you rathered. And then lift up and hold up. See if you can point and flex again. Circles. Go the other way. And flex, curl, point, flip, flex, curl, point, flip. One more. Perfect. Relax, stack your legs, and then flip over. So for the second round, same, everything will be, similar lengths of hold and all that. Make sure for the circle portion that you do the same number you did on the other side. Now when it comes to this kind of work, One side's often going to feel very, very different than the other. Do not be surprised by that. Heels close to buttocks, 90-degree angle at the hip, spreading toes. You can lift the outer heel or have it touch. It will likely lift slightly. You can lift the feet a little if you like, and then lift and lower right knee this time. Trying not to allow one side of the body to be shorter, one side of the body to be longer. Think of lengthening hips away from armpits and armpits away from hips. Orienting that left arm in whatever way suits you most. Putting support under your head and extending the arm in front of you anytime you fancy. Abdomen and ribs draw toward the spine. Maybe you can draw the left ribs towards the right. Take the right hip toward the end of the mat just a little. Trying not to shorten on this right side. And you can take breaks anytime you like. Bright side is the more often you do this work, the easier it gets, and then you can do more and more and more of it with better and better alignment and get farther and farther from any pain, physical or otherwise. And we might as well avoid the suffering that has yet to come if we can, right? Alrighty, and then holding up, you can stay up. Knees can be really close, really far, but make sure you're not letting that right hip travel back. You're taking the center of the buttocks forward to lift the inner groin and lengthen the inner groin. Outer knee draws to outer hip. You're spreading your toes. You can pulse, you can hang out still. If your arm is extended, you're pushing into the palm, you're drawing the left ribs toward the right a little, along with the ribs drawing toward the spine in general. Pardon me. And I like to really have a strong elbow here, so my right elbow, it's reaching in all directions, and I'm externally rotating and lengthening the collarbones and the base of the neck, the trapezius area there. And then eventually stacking, relaxing, taking the feet a little farther away from you, so you've got a 90-degree at the hip, a 90-degree angle at the knee, right hand in front of you likely, or on the right hip, right leg lifts slightly. We're taking the heel toward the buttocks, and the thigh toward the abdomen. Heel toward buttocks, thigh toward abdomen. And you're trying not to shorten on that right side. You're thinking right hip away from right armpit, as you continue to move. Trying not to lose the levelness of the joints. And that's really tricky at first. Just do what you can. And if it's not tricky, there's a good chance your joints aren't lined up. A little trick if you're, say you don't have a mirror and you really want to get that levelness of the joints, what you can do is put a block on your foot and on your knee. And then go forward and back. And it is tricky. And another way to do it is just ankle or just knee too, right? I often teach that. So same concept, right? Another way to, make it a little trickier if you need it. And then taking your thigh back to hold. Now you can stay still. You can pulse as though you were kicking your foot into a surface that were just out of reach. You can clasp the ankle or foot if you like, but make sure your knee, your foot no higher or lower than your hip. Everything's level. Abdomen and ribs draw towards spine. We try not to let our spine be further forward than the rest of the spine, so head in line with pelvis if you can. 5 more breaths. And then release. Spread your toes, flex your ankles. Have your hand in front of you or on your hip. Find the position that suits you best. Find your abdomen, your ribs. Lift that right leg again and in internal rotation circles. And here you're looking to keep that pelvis incredibly still, very, very solid. You're isolating the movement to the right femur, to the right thigh. We're not going back and forth. We will do that in a little bit here. But for now, we're trying to keep a very, very neutral, stable, still pelvis. And this is the sort of work that makes such a huge difference, along with the clamshell sort of movement, in strengthening all of the muscles that support the SI joint, the lower back, the iliums, that whole area. And again, you're doing 5 to 10 in each direction. Make sure you're keeping track. I'll change direction now, but you can do a few more, a few less. And be mindful, one side is likely to be quite a bit harder than the other. Depends on the person, which side's which. But if you keep working on it, more symmetry will come. And then when you're ready, take a brief rest. And then we'll do 3 to 5 circles in each direction. I like to start with internal rotation and aim for the largest circle you can manage without losing the abdomen and the ribs. So it's okay to let the hip move as much as you like this time, but try not to let the ribs or the abdomen change at all. When you've done the number that suits you, change direction. And clunking, popping, kind of snapping sounds, as long as it doesn't hurt at all, it's very normal. Particularly with the hip, you know, we've got the femur ball and socket joint going on here, so often it'll kind of slip and slide a little within the context of the joint. All right, and then we'll rest those legs. From here, you're gonna go ahead and straighten out. Let both legs be straight and notice if you're more of a banana shape versus a ruler. Straighten yourself out. As much as feels good, don't force it, right? It is okay to be a little more banana, but ideally we're working more straight. Line if we can. You'd glance down and just be able to see your feet versus seeing a large portion of the leg. You're drawing abdomen and ribs towards spine. You're squeezing hips together. I like to lift outer left heel a smidge. Hand in front of you for balance. You can reach with the elbow. You might want your hand on your hip though. That's great too. Think shoulders stacking. And then outer right heel lifts and lowers. Remember, you're not sending your leg as far as you can. You're not externally rotating. And instead, you're keeping a neutral rotation. Outer heel is leading. And eventually holding up, you might hold an inch apart or quite a bit apart, up to you. You can point and flex, you can pulse. Circles, if you're with me on the footwork. Go the other way. flexing, curling, pointing, flipping, flexing, curling, pointing, flipping. One more. Wonderful. And go ahead and relax the legs for a moment, and then one of two options for the last one. Right knee bends. You can take the right foot in front of the left thigh. Perhaps you clasp your ankle. Some folks like to tuck the thumb under the arch and hold the front of the ankle, or just hold the ankle or shin itself. You can have your hand in front of you for balance, and then we're lifting outer left leg away from floor, left leg going up and down. And I think about pushing into my right foot and trying to keep my right knee from coming towards me here. Second option, right foot behind left thigh. Same concept, squeezing legs towards one another here, lengthening right knee and thigh away from you, either way. Two great ways to work the same kind of connection. And lifting and holding, maybe you just continue to move, that's great too. You can point and flex here as well, which I highly recommend. It's also great to draw little circles with the whole leg, like so. But we didn't do it on the other side, so don't worry about it too much. Unless you did it because you enjoyed it from another round of this series another time. Go the other way. And a little flexing, curling, pointing, and flipping. Flexing, curling, pointing, flipping. Then go ahead and relax. Straighten out the legs. And then from here, come onto your back. Lengthen the spine. If you have a block, put it between your thighs. If you don't, that's fine. You're going to push into your palms, shoulders, fingers. Spread the toes broadly. Lengthen flesh of buttocks away from you. And then lift the lower back, or the tailbone, the lumbar, followed by the mid and upper back. Not letting the rib cage pop if that's a flexible area for you, but dropping those ribs as you lengthen the mid back. If you've got a block, you're squeezing it. If you don't have a block, you imagine you're squeezing a block and you equally try to pull your thighs away from it if that makes sense. Maybe you lift the arches of the foot, maybe you lift just your toes, maybe you lift and lower them. Another option would be bent elbows, reaching fingers to ceiling, or maybe fists. But I really like to work with straight fingers, squeezing them together, including the thumbs and ring fingers. Then press the toes down to hold, lift the pelvis to hold, breathing. Just 10 more breaths. And then lower as slowly as you can, keeping the shoulders, one disc, one vertebra at a time. Try to lengthen the pelvis away from the shoulders as you do so. Once you've completely lowered the pelvis, and please don't rush, if you've got a block, you'll put it beside you. You can choose to do one of a few things. You can straighten out your legs. This is often a comfortable position or a very good resting position after a back bend. The second option would be to keep the knees bent and go side to side with the knees. A third option could be hugging the legs, staying still or going side to side. So all are good possibilities. Take a couple more breaths, moving or being still. And then from here, we'll roll to one side. Once you brought your feet down to the ground, and come to sit. Well, actually, no, we're not going to sit yet. We'll come onto our hands and knees for a little bit first. So we'll tuck our toes, get a good grip. You can have your hands on the ground, or you can have your hands up on blocks if you happen to have them. In that case, you'd want to wrap your fingers around the block like so. All right. Few shoulder push-ups, sinking upper arm bones and then lifting up away. Sinking upper arm bones, lifting up away. So you're trying to take the humeral bones quite as far toward the socket as they can, and then you're trying to create space in between the bone and the socket. And it really depends on the person how much movement happens here. Luckily, my body creates a big movement so you can actually see what it looks like and get a sense of what it'll feel like in your own body by seeing the visual. But don't expect your body to move this much. It might move, you know, a tenth as much. It might move more. Both are normal. Just variance of being human, right? And then extension, no tension. You want to be able to move your neck here. Now think external rotation of upper arm, internal rotation. External rotation, internal rotation. Notice how that tries to move your hands. Think about keeping the hands super still if you can. If you feel anything in your elbows, do this with quite a bend in the elbow, like so. Good, and then think external rotation of upper arm, internal rotation of lower arm to pull the elbows apart. So those elbows become very stable. Round your back, tuck your chin, press the floor away. Lift your gaze, lift your sit bones, look up. Continue at your own pace, no force, no strain. You're going to press into the toes that you have tucked under. Neutral spine, point your feet, get a lift in the ankle, drag the heels away from you, circles with the hips. Base of thumb, base of index finger rooting. Hard to do that, bring your hands farther forward, take them wider. It'll make it easier to control your joints. And that's what you're looking for. Controlling the joints, controlling the body, controlling the mind. Always working with moderation. Never force it, never strain. Go the other way now. Always giving yourself permission. Do less, do more based on how you feel that day. Especially now when things are kind of upside down and twisted all the time. It's that much more important to do what feels good on that day. Don't worry about what you did last time or what you might do next time. Just be happy you got to your mat at all. Just that consistency of mind that it takes to practice on a regular basis has an immense amount of value. Cease the circles, tuck your toes, get a good grip, bring your hips closer to your heels, lengthening rib cage away from pelvis. You have options. You can put something under your head, a block, a book, whatever you've got. The more height you use, the more supportive it'll be. You can stack fists or palms under head. You can extend your arms. If you choose to extend your arms, you want to watch that the forearms aren't falling toward the floor and the forehead isn't falling toward the floor, but rather you're lifting the inner upper arm up toward the ceiling. There's a lift in that forearm as you externally rotate the shoulder. So less of this and more of this, right? Neutral neck. And if you need more, you lift your knees, which is an option if it feels like a reasonable one. It does not matter if you choose it or not. Not letting forearms fall to floor, but lifting them up away, lengthening sit bones, rather than rounding the back and sinking. We're lifting and we're lengthening. Let's take 10 more breaths. All of these options are good depending on what feels right today. Then go ahead and give yourself a rest if the knees are up. Knees wide, feet pointed, hips towards your heels. I'll give you a variety of possibilities here. The average one, or the ones we often go to if we're feeling stress. In this case, this is going to be my recommendation for everyone, regardless of what you feel you should or shouldn't do or can or can't do, flexibility-wise and whatnot. Not important. Supporting the forehead with anything, book, if it's not, if it's not too hard, if maybe a paperback, or anything you've got to put under the forehead, it really helps to calm the nervous system. So this would be what I'd recommend out of every possibility in terms of child's pose. If you thought, oh, I really want more of a shoulder stretch too, then go for, say, a medium height and go ahead and straighten out the arms at the same time, or go up on fingertips at the same time. Say you were blessed with 3 surfaces you could use. Could be blocks, could be other stuff. And you really wanted more still. Then you could do height under forehead and height under hands too. Also really, really nice if you need more. But still want that supportive sense, right? And you can do it on any height you like. The higher the height, the more support you're gonna get. See if you can take 10 more deep breaths. Feel the back of the body expanding and contracting. And when you're ready, coming forward onto hands and knees or elbows and knees, we'll stretch the legs. Take the toes away from you, the heel away from you. I like to go baby toe away from me and bend my knee a little too. And then opposite set of toes, farther away than heel, heel further away than toes, and then maybe grabbing the baby toe, maybe even bending the knee a little. You want to make sure you don't feel your knees if you have that little knee bend. If you do, back off, not worth it. All right, so from here, we're gonna come to a seated position that suits us. So I'm gonna give you lots of options. You could sit on your shins. If that worked for you, great. You could sit directly on your feet if you wanted to. And we're gonna do 2 rounds of sitting, 2 rounds of shoulder work here, so you can switch up your position halfway through if you wanted. You can say do toes tucked, and then feet pointed, or an ankle lift, or something like that. If you happen to have blocks, you could put a couple between your feet and then sit back on them. Just like so. 2 between feet, sit back. You could do this with tucked toes. You could do this with pointed toes, depending on whether you wanted more stretch into the toes or into the front of the ankle or what have you. It feels different. As I say, you can switch it up partway through if you like. And I recommend it. It's nice to sit in a few different ways. I'll give you a couple more options. If it's appropriate for you, you can sit cross-legged, right shin in front of left. And here we tend to start with our feet close and our knees high. What we're looking for is to walk our feet toward our knees and eventually stack our knees. And this is the setup, for lotus and so on, is we're stacking our joints, right? So, and that's not what I'm suggesting. I just want you to kind of see where that goes. So that's why we're aiming wider with our feet because it really gets into the hip flexors more effectively. If your knees lift, then you sit on some height, right? Block, book, whatever you got handy. And then those knees will come down and it'll give you some more movement into the hip. I don't like to let my ankles just relax. I think of flexing my ankles and trying to lift the ankle bone, the outer ankle, away from the floor. If you do a lot of seated cross-legged, you could point your feet more. But I tend to err on the side of that ankle flexion. Some of you might want to sit and go Mukasana, so I'll give that as the last option. In this case, you'd start with your knees together. You can't have any knee stuff. Right leg goes under, left leg goes over, and then you flex your ankles here just like you do when you're seated in cross-legged, or we call it Sukhasana. So from here, you have to have both sit bones on the floor, no pain at all. If it changes, pain occurs, you change your seated position. You can always sit in a chair or whatever you like. Then we're gonna do a bit of work with our shoulders while we're here. Fingertips touch shoulders. Big forward circles, as big as you possibly can. Try not to let the ribs move. Please change your seated position at any time. Think about being right on the center of the sit bones if you can. Engaging every single digit of the fingers. Just another visual of this one from the side. You want both sit bones on the floor, you want flexion in ankle. Equal weight in sit bones, equal flexion in ankles is what you're aiming for. All right, backward circles. Drawing ribs towards spine and up spine. And to get into the trapezius, or the space of the upper back here, more, think of reaching those elbows together, but lifting the inner upper arm as you go up. So you're not letting any internal rotation happen. You're thinking as much external rotation as possible as you reach with that inner elbow. Good. Good. Next portion, you're going to see if you can either take your fingertips to your shoulders, cross your arms in front of you, touch your hands in front of you, or interlace your hands at the base of the skull. If you do the hands at the base of the skull, you're squeezing your pinky fingers, you're touching your thumbs, you're reaching your elbows away from one another, you're pulling your upper arm bones into their sockets. Not down from the ears, but rather elbows pull apart and upper arm bones pull apart. Twisting, right to left. Remember to change your seated position anytime at all. Ribs to spine, abdomen to spine. Maybe you can pull those elbows and upper arms apart a little bit more. And then come back to center. We're going to see if we can interlace those hands and flip our palms, taking the back of the hand to the crown, elbows pulling apart. We can stay still, we can straighten and bend. And then either staying straight, staying bent. If you want to add a little more in, you can do some circles with the hands. And this can be done overhead, but it looks kind of funny. Or you can do it in front of you. And I imagine that it's kind of like you're stirring up a big pot of soup, but instead of holding like a big wooden spoon, you're interlacing your hands and flipping your hands away from you. Which looks kind of funny, but oh, does it feel good? And you can do it as much overhead as you like, right? And if you do it with your hands over your head or a little bit behind your head, oh, hello, trapezius. Happy, happy traps. I have a teacher that likes to call it treats for traps, which I think is quite amusing. Go the other way if you haven't yet. Remember, it can be overhead, it can be in front of your face, it can be a little lower toward the legs or in front of the abdomen. Trying to keep the pinky fingers squeezing, trying to keep the thumbs touching. And you can do this with a block on your hands if your arms are overhead, and it's even more, heat building. All right, and then arms straightening out. If they were overhead, bring them in front of you, bend your elbows, relax, big inhale, big exhale. We'll do one more thing before we change positions. If you need to change positions now, you do. We're gonna try to interlace our hands behind our back and pull the palms apart. And here, if you can straighten your elbows like this, you can hyperextend them. Don't bend them a bit, it's worth it. Draw the ribs in. If you want more, you can bring your palms together if you like, but again, you don't want to hyperextend the elbows in order to do it. If you can't hyperextend your elbows, don't worry about it. You can stay, or you can tuck your chin if you like. Maybe even take the chin a little right, a little left. Especially if you want to release the traps more, the upper back more. It's a great option. Elbows pull apart, upper arms pull apart, palms can pull apart or squeeze together, up to you. 5 more breaths. Good, and then looking forward, releasing your hands. Let your hands rest. Big inhale, shoulders lift. Big exhale, shoulders drop. And then from here, release your legs. So if you are in Gomukhasana or in cross-legged position, you'll extend the legs in front of you, releasing one leg and then the other. If you're on your shins, you might want to stretch out on the hands and knees, more like so, like we did earlier. Otherwise, you might want to sit with the hands slightly behind you on the fingertips, chest lifting, abdomen lifting, and then point and flex the ankles. And circles, if you're with me. And go the other way. Great. Flexing, curling, pointing, flipping. Flexing, curling, pointing, flipping. And then from here, we'll find a seated position once more. You can choose to sit on your shins again, either with tucked toes or pointed feet, on height, no height, somewhere in between. You can sit cross-legged, in which case it would be left leg in front of right. You'd walk your feet wide, so that the feet and knees and ankles are somewhat stacking, or as close as you can get. And then you'd find some flexion in the ankle, lengthening the inner groins as you flex the ankle and try to lift the outer ankle a little if you can. I literally try to lift them. You might try to lift them a little bit, a lot. It depends on how it feels, right? Third option, last option, Gomukhasana, cow face. Left leg under, right leg over, if you choose that option. And I like to roll the flesh of the calf toward me a bit if I'm taking Gomukhasana, if you have a more fleshy calf, as I do. Feet are flexing, regardless of which of those last 2 options you take. Straighten out the arms, fists on the inside of hand, forward circles with the arms. And if you find this a bit awkward, you hit your feet I don't really mind. I find it such a nice shoulder release that I'm happy with it regardless. But usually this one is done standing or in a kneeling position versus seated on the buttocks with the legs crossed in whatever way. Change direction now. So feel free to do it again with fingertips on shoulders with bent elbows. Great either way. Focus on the rib cage not changing. Go as large as you can with the rotation without pain. And these backward circles are particularly effective whether the elbows are bent or whether the elbows are straight. They're very, very useful. These circles for releasing the upper back, the neck, and of course the traps that pull on the neck. Nice. And then from here, I'm going to take our hands, interlace them. See if we can bring them to the base of the skull. We want our left thumb and forefinger dominant this time, right? However, that might feel like too much. If it does, hands can be in front of you. You can touch your palms together, namaskara. You can cross the wrists in front of you, give yourself a little love. Whatever you like. You can even have your fingers touching your shoulders and your elbows a bit wide. That one's kind of an in-between in terms of effort. If the hands are interlaced at the skull, you're keeping the pinky squeezing, the thumbs touching, you're reaching with the elbows, you're pulling the upper arm bones apart, and we're twisting right, we're twisting left. Great movement for the lung. And you can choose to put more or less pressure by having the arms higher or lower into the lymphatic ducts in the armpit area too, which is great. When your twists are next even, and you could keep on going if you really enjoyed that portion, well, we're going to see if we can flip our hands and take the backs of the hands to the crown. And again, it doesn't need to be over the crown. It could be in front of your chest too, right? Could be toward the legs. What you're looking for is no rounding in the upper back. You can hear that actually changes my voice right away. So I'm compressing my lungs by rounding into my shoulder and my upper back. The second I change my upper back, I change my shoulders, it actually changes my access to my lungs immensely. So keep that in mind. You want to be able to speak your mind and move those lungs easily. And then from here, you can straighten and bend. You can stay still. I highly recommend the straightening and bending. Think about drawing the ribs toward the spine, lengthening the spine, doing it in front of you, doing it toward legs, toward overhead, up to you completely. And you can always add a block onto the palms if you want. That would look more like that. And the heavier the block, the more heat you will build. And then straightening to hold. Maybe you straighten in front of you, maybe you straighten overhead, somewhere in between. Remember, you can change your seated position at any time. Never feel pain here. If you do, alter the position such that you no longer experience pain. Now you can hang out, you can stay still, or you can try to make some circles. And like I say, you can do this in front of the face. You can do it in front of your body, kind of like you're stirring up a pot of soup in some kind of awkward, unusual way. Overhead is going to be the most intense. So you want to make sure you're playing with the amount of sensation that feels good. Moderation is key. And go the other way. And this one's really great for strengthening your fingers too, just in general, FYI. And the longer you keep your hands overhead, the more you'll notice a lot of heat building in the hands. A lot more of, like your circulatory system gets a lot more kind of fired up. straightening out. You can stay. And when you're ready, drop those ribs, bring the arms forward, bend your elbows, release your hands. Big inhale, big exhale. Good. And then from here, show you the last piece of the puzzle here. We'll interlace the hands behind the back. You have options. You can straighten the arms, pulling elbows apart a little bit if you're hypermobile there. Palms can pull apart. You can lift the arms a bit away from you, pull them a bit toward the floor. You can bring your palms towards one another to touch if you like, but just don't let the elbows pop, don't let the ribs pop. You can stay still, or you can tuck your chin if you like. Sometimes we stay still with the chin in center, sometimes we move a little right, a little left. That's up to you. Base it on how you feel. My experience is if I move my neck here, I feel a lot more than I would otherwise. So being mindful of that and only moving as much as actually feels good. If it doesn't feel good, question what you're doing. Do a bit less. See how that feels. Experiment. And come back to center. Stay still if you were moving. Try to take 5 more breaths. When you're ready to, releasing, looking forward, releasing the arms, letting the hands rest. And let's do 3 deep breaths this time, lifting shoulders as you inhale, and then exhale to let the shoulders drop with like a big sigh. That would be ideal. Big inhale, shoulders lifting, big exhale. 2 more. Wonderful. And then from here, we're going to come onto our backs. Actually, you know what? I'll give you 3 options. So you can do 1 of 3 twists. So I'll show you the seated ones first, followed by the one on your back. So if you extend your legs, this is option 1. Easier on the knees, hip and back. You bend your right knee. Right foot comes in line with left knee. Left hand to knee, right hand behind, lengthening spine as you twist towards the right. I like to pull my elbows apart here as I look to the right. I might wrap my forearm around the knee or my arm outside the knee if that felt good. Usually the fingers would be together, palm would be flat on the floor, but you can play with it however you want. Second option, bending both knees. Right foot goes under, left foot goes over. Both sit bones have to be on the floor. You twist to your left. Right leg under, left leg over, twisting to left. Hand can be on knee, arm could come outside knee, depending on what felt good. If you wanted to be on your back, you'd come down very gradually. You'd lengthen your spine, you'd have the arms as wide as feels comfortable, or as high as feels comfortable rather. If they're higher than your shoulders, you're gonna feel a lot more. I'd recommend shoulder height or lower. Pushing into feet, taking hips right, maybe crossing right leg on top, maybe not crossing the legs as you bring your knees towards your left-hand side. You might want to have a block outside that left hip, or a bolster or a block or whatever you've got handy to support it. Maybe the legs are crossed, maybe they're not. Doesn't matter either way. You don't want to force. You don't want to strain. Moderate effort is best. Once you've found your depth, take 10 more breaths. When you're ready, unwinding gradually. you're on your back, coming back to center, adjusting, hips to the opposite side, knees to the other, legs can be crossed or not. Support your hip as much as you like with anything you have handy. If you're seated, your legs will be extended. You'll bend just the left knee, left hand behind, right hand to left knee as you twist to the right, or you'll bend both knees. This time tucking left foot under, right leg over, and twisting to the right hand side. It is up to you. Choose what suits you. Do not force or strain. There's no particular depth that's necessary or better than another. Continue. Concentrate on every inhale and every exhale. If your mind wanders, bringing your attention back to the movement of your breathing. And when you are ready to unwind, do so slowly, gradually, releasing one leg and then the other. If you are seated, if you're on your back, straightening out, hips in line with shoulders, giving the legs a hug if you like. If you're seated, go ahead and bend your knees. Make sure you've got lots of space behind you. And I'll give you a couple of options. So if you're looking to release the upper back and the legs a bit more while you rest, legs up the wall is a wonderful option. So I'll talk you through that briefly first, and then I'll talk you through my preferred alignments for Shavasana. So if you wanted to do legs up the wall as your Shavasana, it would have to be pretty comfortable. You wouldn't want to force how close you were to the wall. You wouldn't want it to be a strong effort. You want it to be very, very mild effort, not even moderate, right? You'd roll to the right side, you keep your knees bent, you'd roll onto your back, again, knees stay bent, lengthen the spine as much as feels good, make sure your head is in line with your pelvis, you're not twisted, and then you would straighten your legs. I like to bend my knees a little bit once I'm there, feet apart, and lengthen my pubic bone toward the wall, find a neutral neck, and then let's straighten my legs, relax my arms, and hang out. When you come out, you bend your knees. Alright, so here are my favorite Shavasana alignments for you. You'd have your hands behind your thigh. You'd come down very slow, very gradually, one disc at a time. You'd neutralize the pelvis, so pubic bone lengthening away from you. Feet can be apart or together. You'd slowly straighten the legs, rolling the baby toes toward the floor, letting the legs be quite heavy. Then go ahead and extend the arms, let the palms face up. Wrists are in line with waist traditionally, but you can change it if you need. I like to clench and relax my fingers and palms once I've found a neutral neck, and then completely rest from there. Becoming as still as you can be, resisting the urge to fidget and adjust, focusing on your body, your breathing from the inside, concentrating on being still. And today I'm going to leave you here for your Shavasana. I highly recommend resting for a minimum of 10 minutes. If you have 15, that would be even more ideal. Try your best to stay with your Shavasana practice until your body feels genuinely heavy and very still.